Hey, we are the Lab Doctors. I'm Amanda.
I'm Dorothy.
And I'm Zhao Yong.
We are biomedical researchers who realized we still have a lot to learn about science.
So why not join us on this quest?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lab Doctors podcast. So this week we're going to be talking about COVID brain fog.
Yay!
Okay, so the common symptoms of COVID are fever, cough, shortness of breath, and fatigue. However, it is estimated that up to 1 in 4 people develop neurological symptoms. That is symptoms that affect your brain and the nervous system. Okay, so my first question today is, what is brain fog?
I follow this Malaysian influencer called So I'm Jen.
Oh,
Yeah, she said she had COVID brain fog.
Okay.
What does that mean? That doesn't answer the question.
As I think it's like you forget what you want to say, or maybe you forget what you want to do.
Okay.
Like after you've gotten COVID for maybe a short while.
This is particularly after COVID or during
Yes.
COVID? Oh,
After. It's like one of the long COVID things.
It's one of the long COVID. Yep.
I feel like during COVID is because of the fever, but after COVID.
Oh yeah, this is probably more after.
Your brain is damaged.
Yeah, right. Because COVID is capable of infecting the brain through the nasal nerves.
Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves, so brain fog is being mentally slow, fuzzy, or spaced out. So some symptoms that people have reported include memory problems, lack of mental clarity, poor concentration, feeling out of it, headaches, and confusion. So actually my next question was, did you have brain fog or do you have brain fog?
Zhao Yong can't answer it because he hasn't gotten COVID.
Oh no, I have brain fog without COVID, so it's...
I feel like I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I also feel like I didn't. I don't feel
we're
any...
the 3 in 4 people.
I don't feel any more or less forgetful than I used to be.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, people can experience brain fog from time to time, not related to COVID. So when you don't sleep enough or you didn't sleep well, when you're overwhelmed or stressed, and yeah, so like all these things can contribute to like brain fog. Okay, so how long do you think brain fog lasts after COVID?
I will give it a month.
Okay, so it's unclear how long it typically lasts, but people have reported that they still experience brain fog for weeks or months after the respiratory symptoms have resolved. So based on population data, the likelihood of having these symptoms increase in the first few months after COVID symptoms develop, and then after the first few months, it will begin to decrease. Okay, so the next question, which you all kind of answered already, but just pretend you didn't answer and answer it again. What do you think are the causes of brain fog?
COVID infecting the brain. Wait,
The virus itself infecting
so
the
there's
brain.
the SARS-CoV-2, right?
And then there's inflammation in the brain.
Inflammatory damage, right? Brain is it microglia? Is that the immune cell? I cannot remember.
Yes, microglia are the immune cells of the brain.
I don't know.
Okay, so different groups have actually proposed different theories, but I only plan to go into one particular study in detail.
Okay.
But before that, here's the TLDR on some of the earlier theories. So case studies, which are basically reports about individual patients, reported that COVID-19 patients developed complications such as consciousness and encephalopathy, which is the general term for brain damage or disease in the brain. So one particular study found increased levels of inflammatory cytokines in the cerebrospinal fluid of patients weeks after COVID-19. And yet another paper also identified microstructural changes in certain brain areas after infection. So these reports of damage or inflammation hinders the ability of neurons to communicate and therefore is a likely contributing factor to brain fog. So before we get into this study, let's talk about severe COVID. So one thing to note about SARS-CoV-2 or the virus that causes COVID is that the virus is neuroinvasive, meaning it can enter your brain tissue. So this may be the reason for cognitive dysfunction in severe COVID. However, the study that I'll be talking about today looked at neurological effects of mild COVID. Okay, so this study is led by Michelle Monge and Akiko Iwasaki, and it was published in Cell. So they used a mouse model of mild SARS-CoV-2 infection, where the infection is limited to the respiratory system and typically clears within a week. So these mice did not lose weight or present any behavior of being ill. And importantly, there was no virus detected in the brain. So this means that instead of just looking at the direct damage by the virus, like in the neuroinvasive model, they are looking at the immune response mediated effects of the virus.
Okay.
So here are the main findings, which I will try my best to explain. So despite the lack of evidence, signs and symptoms of the illness, they found that the cytokine profile in the serum and cerebrospinal fluid were elevated at 1 and 7 weeks after infection. So one of these cytokines is CCL11, which has been implicated in aging-related cognitive impairment. So another change in the infected mice is microglia activation. So as we alluded to earlier, microglia are the immune cells of the brain. So they are important in brain maintenance, where they perform several important tasks. So this includes scavenging the brain and cleaning up cellular debris, like housekeepers. They find things like foreign materials, damaged cells, DNA fragments, or plaques, and phagocytose them. Or if you don't know what phagocytose is, they kind of just eat them up like Pac-Man. So in the white matter of infected mice, researchers found that the microglia were more active than normal, and this abnormality was sustained even after 7 weeks of post-infection. So CCL11, the cytokine that we talked about, can cause microglial reactivity in the hippocampus. So if you remember, we've talked about the hippocampus before, but basically it plays a major role in learning and memory. So the increase in cytokines and microglial activity accompanied by an increase in other genes involved in inflammation. So these changes had a similar profile to other disease contexts such as Alzheimer's and aging-related cognitive decline. So the last two mouse findings is that the formation of neurons in the infected mice were impaired and there was a loss of myelin after infection. These changes will impair brain circuitry. So brain circuitry means the communication between neurons, and also it will impair axon health.
AXON.
Yes. So all of this will further lead to harmful neurological consequences after an infection. Okay, to support the animal findings, the researchers also analyzed post-mortem human brain tissue. So what do you think they found?
In what? The brain?
In the brain.
More inflammatory cells.
Viruses.
Brain. Then they do
Okay, so this is in... sorry, not the viruses. This is like mild COVID. So basically they tried to make sure that they found people who didn't have virus in the brain so that it's not confounded by that.
But they know that they had an infection.
Yeah. So what they're trying to see in this whole study is to see like what are the effects of COVID, not the virus itself, but like the inflammatory response to the virus. Basically, they found increased microglial reactivity in the COVID-19 patients versus the control group. After looking at the blood of long COVID patients, they also found that the cytokine CCL11 was higher in the blood from the patients with cognitive symptoms versus those who did not. So if you didn't have cognitive symptoms, like so all the like brain related like symptoms, then your CCL11 was slightly lower.
I'm just confused like how they got the cognitive symptoms reported from these people.
Self-reported.
Yeah, but it's like, I'm going to take your brain, can you report to me before you die? And then like,
so
take your brain.
So they did post-mortem human brain tissue, so that's where they found microglial reactivity. Then the CCL11 one was from the blood of long COVID patients. So these people are still alive.
Different set
different
of
parts
experiments.
of the study.
Okay.
Okay, so besides that, they also found that changes in SARS-CoV-2 infections were similar to that induced by H1N1 influenza virus at the early time point. So I don't know if you've ever heard of like influenza-related brain fog.
No,
not really.
But they found that the changes were similar.
Yeah.
But after 7 weeks, microglial reactivity and oligodendrocyte loss was not present in the influenza-infected mice. So that means that the SARS-CoV-2 infection was
more long-lasting.
At least the immune response.
Okay.
Okay, so one last thing about this study is that the pathophysiology or like the disease progression of the COVID brain fog is actually quite similar to something called chemo brain. So that's the cognitive impairment caused by cancer chemotherapy. So this could be good news as clinicians can draw on the wealth of knowledge from cancer therapy related research to help manage COVID brain fog. Okay, so let's end on something lighter. So what do you think helps with brain fog?
Meditate.
Yes.
Exercise.
Yes.
I was gonna say drink coconut water.
Could help.
Maybe
Could help. What
drinking
shouldn't
more
you
water.
drink?
Alcohol.
So you should avoid tobacco and alcohol because staying away from these products can help minimize inflammation in your brain. So besides that, you should get plenty of sleep. So getting good quality sleep can help your body and especially your brain repair and recover. So regular exercise. So physical activity isn't only beneficial to your heart and lungs, it's also a great way to boost your brain function.
As with all exercise, is good,
Yes.
supposedly.
And lastly, eat well. So you should try to eat a well-balanced and healthy diet to give your body nourishment it needs to return to good health. Okay, and lastly, when to see a doctor.
For COVID brain fog? I don't know I feel like it just sounds so anecdotal, like
Yeah.
yeah, because you wouldn't have quantified like how many times you get forgetful or stuff like that before you got COVID. So
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it's like confirmation bias because, it's like before that, maybe you don't think it's COVID. If you forget something, it's just like, oh yeah, forgetful.
General aging.
Yeah. But then after COVID, you're like, how come I forget this? Last time I
you
forget.
take note of it more.
Yeah. Because you hear that other people,
Yeah.
it's happening to other people.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, I have brain fog even without getting infected.
We'll find out when you get COVID. No cursing.
If it gets worse.
Might improve, you don't know.
Okay, so when you should see a doctor is when your mental symptoms are severe enough that they interfere with your daily life,
Right.
or if they don't improve after a couple of weeks. Lingering cognitive issues that affect your ability to think clearly is another sign that you should be following up with your doctor.
What if I have lingering cognitive issues without?
Then you should see a doctor.
Okay.
You should
Noted.
consult a doctor.
Yeah. And as usual, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify. A like and a comment would really help us out.
You can also follow us on our social media, Instagram, Twitter or Facebook, and feel free to DM us any questions.
Alternatively, you can email us at thelabdoctors@gmail.com. We'll post the links in the episode description so you can check that out.
Thanks.
Bye.